And again, welcome to our webinar, our Kickstart webinar series. And today's webinar is Transforming Research with AdvanTx. So AdvanTx stands for Advance Therapeutics Initiative, which will serve as a centralized resource for faculty to engage and develop therapeutic-related research and development projects. And we're very excited to have two wonderful set of speakers here today that are very involved with the university. Michael Kline and John Collins, who we will be talking about, again, this initiative. And very close to us at Kickstart is Michael Kline, who works at the Office of Technology Commercialization. Just like us at Kickstart, he joined the office in 2015. And he really is responsible in his role, to really increase our innovation capacity at the university. Those of you who don't know him, he's involved, with faculty and staff through outreach, education, and support and translation research. Probably, I'm sure many of you know, but if you don't, it's important that you know that he also manages a proof of concept fund for technologies developed at the university that have commercialization potential. So definitely, it's always good to keep in touch with Michael for this. Prior to joining UNC, Michael worked at the Mayo Clinic Ventures, so he was there also responsible for identifying and evaluating new technologies. So he brings all that to UNC. Before that, he actually worked in translational research himself at the Mayo Clinic in the division of hematology. And prior to that, he worked at Abbott Laboratories as well. He has a PhD in biochemistry, cell and molecular biology at Northwestern. And John joined us recently in 2019, and he's actually the lead of Pinnacle Health, which many of you probably have also heard about. This is a partnership between UNC and Deerfield management. This partnership was established to accelerate the development of UNC researchers' ideas and technologies into new medicines. And because of this experience and everything, we're trying to capitalize on this. And he works very closely with UNC researchers and staff and leadership to advance early stage therapeutic projects. And this, one of the things that really catalyzed this new initiative, in leading new drugs to the market. So all this experience that John and Michael have and others at the university really looking to help with this, and he'll be talking a lot about this more during his presentation. John has a lot of years in pharma, 24 years working in multidisciplinary drug discovery teams, as well as 8 years leading the GSK academia collaborations in drug discovery. So he knows very well how to work with early stage technologies that come from the university. Before that, he also worked as the scientific advisor for the University of Michigan Therapeutic Innovation Fund, and won't hold it against him, the Duke Culture Translational Partnership Oversight Committee as well, as an advisor for BioLife. He has a BS in chemistry from UNC and a PhD in organic chemistry from Indiana, and a postdoc fellowship from Harvard as well. So thank you so much both for agreeing to present for us today. And we're really excited to learn more about this initiative and what this means for all of our faculty and researchers at the university. So please go ahead, John.
Thanks, Maria. Hi, everyone. I'm looking at the list of attendees now. I know Bryant, I know Kay, I know Patrick. So if people, I said this to Maria and Haley at the beginning. I think Michael and I are happy to take questions throughout the presentation if you have something you want to talk about at that time, or if you prefer, wait till the end. So now let me share my slides. Yeah, this talk should not take more than, I don't know, 25-ish minutes or something like that. So again, we got plenty of time for dialogue. So can you see my slides, and can you see my
Yep, it's all good, and the mouse too.
Okay, good. So, yeah, again, thanks, Maria. So Michael and I have been working with a group of people, Joyce Tan in particular, in the Office of the Vice Chancellor for Research, to create this new initiative that I'll describe today. And it's called AdvanTx. Real innovative, right? Advance Therapeutics Initiative. But I think it gets the point across about what we're trying to do. And I usually, well, not always, but sometimes start with a presentation that, to tell people, if you walk away from today, what is it that you should walk away with? And one is, we're here to help. This team is here to help. And two, if you have either ideas around therapeutic projects or particular therapeutic projects that are actually ongoing in your labs, then we'd love to hear about them and try to figure out how we can help. So this initiative, AdvanTx, is a mechanism through which you can access the team and the larger organization across UNC, which I've learned since I've been here is not simple. it's complex. So as I said, Joyce, Michael, and myself have been working with PIs for me, the last 2 years, and Michael longer, and Joyce as well for a longer period of time, to try to advance therapeutics projects on campus. And what we've realized from this is that there are a lot of different activities that are ongoing on campus that are focused on therapeutics and other things for that matter. And there's no central one-stop shop for where PIs can go if they want advice on an idea for a therapeutic project, early stage therapeutic project, and how to go about trying to access resources that exist on campus, but also off campus as well. So we created this initiative, and this is a brief summary of one slide snapshot of what it is. This is being sponsored by Terry Magnuson in the Office of the Vice Chancellor for Research. And again, what we've done is we've created a small team of individuals which represent the different units on campus by design, to represent the different units on campus to try to figure out, okay, what can we do to help therapeutic projects? And this is obvious, but I'll say it to reinforce it is, the overarching goal is to try to help advance PI's therapeutic projects. And there's some of the support that we'll talk about today is provide scientific expertise. And when I say scientific expertise, I'm not referring to basic science expertise. I'm thinking about in the context of therapeutic science, which is related to but different from basic science expertise around a particular target or pathway or approach. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I think Michael and others within OTC are well equipped to help people kind of figure out what a commercialization strategy could be. And as I alluded to, organizationally here at UNC, this team intends to try to organize and advocate for funding and partnering with the internal units, but also to try to figure out what avenues could you pursue to try to access external resources and funding. And again, overarching goal to increase funding for therapeutic projects and translation to products and NUCOs. So Terry sent an email out, I guess it was the end of January, announcing this initiative. And in that email, there's a link to the Advance Therapeutics website, which sits on the Office of Vice Chancellor of Research website. There'll be a link at the end of this presentation if you don't already know about the website. But there, what he did and what we're continuing to do is to ask PIs, primary investigators, primary faculty, grad students, postdocs who have therapeutic projects to submit their ideas or their projects onto a portal. We won't go into the details of the portal, but it's pretty straightforward. If you go to the AdvanTx website, there's a link there, boom, you go into a portal. It's a one-page form. That form, this contains questions that are shown down here at the bottom. So really, all you would need to do is click on the link, go to the one-page form, and we're really looking for brief answers to these questions. And if you don't have answers to some of these questions, that's perfectly fine as well. That really doesn't matter for us. I think it's more about the top 2 or 3 that we really, if we can kind of get a feel for what you're thinking, the target, the gene, what you're thinking, and that will really help us kind of start to begin to wrap our head around the project. Place to enter in your name, your department or division, and then if you complete these, in those cases where you may not have an answer to a question, you can just say unknown. we made a requirement for people to enter some text. So you have to put something in, and it could just be unknown or not applicable or whatever the case may be. But again, it's meant to be very brief. It's meant to not take up a lot of time for the investigators. It's meant to be simple. And I should note too that the information will be treated as UNC confidential information. So it will not be shared with anyone other than the AdvanTx team and the person obviously who shared it. So here, what's the process? So as I just said, you have UNC investigators or representatives thereof submitted projects through projects through the portal, and the review team will review the submissions, and I'll show you the review team in just a second. I'm sure people are going to be familiar with a lot of the people that are on the review team. We review those independently, and then we come together and kind of come up with a consensus rating for the submissions. And I should say, when I say rating, it's not really judging per se the quality of the science or the project. I view all therapeutic, I think most of us, Michael, you'll agree with this, that most therapeutic projects, it just depends on the stage of development. Some are really, really early. Some are interesting, but not quite there. And then some are, yeah, this is really, really interesting. So we call that high, medium, and low. So we come to some consensus agreement amongst the review team about what that overall assessment should be for a particular project. For all projects that are submitted, we will provide feedback. For the most part, consists of verbal feedback. One or two of us will meet with the PI or whoever submitted the proposal and talk about it, and talk about options to try to help progress the project to the next phase. And then further to the right on this particular diagram here, those projects which look most promising are the ones where initially we would probably, we will spend the majority of our time trying to help them initially. But even those that are a little early, we fully intend to kind of stay engaged with and monitor the progress of those projects, and with an eye towards trying to see how we can help progress those from mid to early stage up to a high priority project. And then, for those that are high priority, then how can we figure out how to support the project? And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So this is the team. Again, the design was intended to be, the makeup was designed to have representatives from the different groups, including Joyce from the Office of Vice Chancellor for Research, Michael, from OTC, Andy Cant, who's Director of Fast Tracks, myself, I technically sit within the Office of Vice Chancellor for Research, Alex Abuin from the EII, Eshelman's Institute for Innovation, and Jen Brennan from the School of Medicine. And all of these people have pretty extensive both some pharma experience, but also experience assessing and trying to figure out how to help investigators advance their technologies, whether it's therapeutics or other technologies as well. Jen's got tremendous support or tremendous experience on the operational side as well, in terms of operating within the UNC environment. And Joyce does as well. And Michael, I'm sure you do too. I'm the one that's, I'm the weak link in that, in that area. But it's a great team. We meet regularly to talk about projects, the ones that have been submitted, the new ones that are being submitted, and the ones that are farther along, and we're trying to figure out how to help those. So what kind of support do we offer to projects / faculty? One is IP support, where Michael or other representatives from OTC can take a look at the technology or project and see if there's any patentable IP. And if not, and as you might suspect, for a lot of these projects, they're very early stage projects. So for those types of projects, we can at least start to talk about, what kind of strategy should one consider in thinking about future development of intellectual property. And Michael, I don't know, do you have anything else there you want to talk about for IP support?
No, I think that covers it. This is obviously a very important consideration for therapeutic development as the IP. And so what we want to make sure is that before things are published or disclosed around a project, that we have it protected accordingly. and then think about strategy going forward. The early engagement with the faculty is really important here for us, and that's what we're really interested in. And so the earlier we can engage and build that relationship, then going forward, we can think on an ongoing basis, when should we file? When should we not file? When should we start talking with third parties, et cetera? And that's all part of an ongoing dialogue for these projects. So just want to make sure we're ahead of things.
Thanks, Michael. And then mentorship, this is scientific support. And again, to emphasize therapeutic science support. And, I use these words here, but I think there's no better way to kind of exemplify what can be done by giving you an example. So we've included an example in this presentation. And this is a PI, for those who don't know him, John Sondak. He's in the School of Medicine in the Department of Pharmacology. And John is probably the world's leader on this particular family of enzymes, phospholipases, and in particular phospholipase C gamma. He's been interested in this targets for a while for many different reasons, but one of which was there are potential opportunities to modulate these enzymes, activation, inhibition, whatever the case may be. There's a potential link to multiple diseases. And so, one of the things that I'll show you in a minute is we kind of help John try to figure out, okay, how would you position this and what's the best opportunity today? And I should point out, and Michael alluded to this, even early stage projects, for this one, this was just conceptual stage. It was really, really early. He just happened to have a target in hand and he was trying to figure out what can we do it? What could be kind of therapeutic path could we pursue if we wanted to? Limited target validation data generated at UNC, although there was some information in the literature and then embedded in databases that provide insight as to how you could target this particular targets in terms of therapeutics. So what we did, and this took time, several conversations, but what we did is we sat down, and on the left-hand side, what I describe is typically a target assessment. Whenever you think about someone, PI's got an interesting target that they're thinking about, what are the things you consider from a therapeutic perspective? And one is, what is the therapeutic hypothesis? And does that make sense from a commercial perspective, but also just scientifically? Is there really an unmet medical need? That's a really important question. If there's not, then, or if there are other agents targeting the same indication, then how are you going to differentiate versus those therapeutics? Existing therapeutics. So we helped John and the project team develop a more refined therapeutic hypothesis. I think there's a lot of interest in thinking about the use of human genetic data and other human translational data to help give reason to believe that the therapeutic hypothesis of the biological pathway, the target, could be relevant in the human system. And that's a really, really important question. And a lot of companies are shifting in that direction now. Technical feasibility. Can you actually do what you want to do preclinically and clinically? Tools and reagents. What preclinical tools and reagents exist today? What do you need to develop? What can you access through commercial suppliers, et cetera? Safety assessment. People in the therapeutic space always think about risk, and safety assessment's obviously one of those. And with each target, always comes unique aspects to safety that one has to consider. And we did the same thing for these targets. An important question is, what's your patient selection strategy? What indication? What's your patient selection strategy? What does the clinical development plan look like? And how much is it going to cost? That's a really important question as well, which many of you probably already know. But we helped John and the team try to sort through that from a therapeutic perspective. Competitive analysis, differentiation, and project de-risking. There's a lot of, if there are potential risks that are important to address, the sooner you can address those, the better, both from a time perspective, but also just from a cost perspective. So we went through that. And I would say that 4 really important things emerged from those discussions with John and the project team. One is, John and the team were able to get, we lobbied for the team to get a screen through UNC's collaboration with HitGen. which I don't know, many people probably don't know about this, but I think Alex is going to be coming, when in August? Is that what Maria or Haley said? I can't remember.
Yeah, we're gonna look in the September timeframe. Yeah.
Okay, September timeframe. So later this year, through the drug discovery initiative, there's a collaboration that UNC set up with a screening company called HitChin, which has this unique DNA encoded screening libraries that it's a unique approach to screen a lot of compounds. And so this project team managed to secure a slot through that collaboration. And I think part of that came from the discussions we had about how would you pursue this therapeutically and what avenues should you think about from generation of initial chemical matter for small molecule drug discovery project. Another one is the NIH has set up this Translational Research Center, which it turns out we're really interested in this particular target, that one of the targets. And they, through these discussions, I think we really helped the project team kind of formulate a strategy or a plan about how they wanted to engage in a collaboration with that Translational Research Center. And so now that's in place, and there's a small molecule screen which is complementary to this UNC HitChin screen that that's being pursued to try to identify chemical tools as well as starting points for a medicinal chemistry project. And then the third one here is another group that turns out to be a patient advocacy group, which they have funds. They're interested in investing in early stage projects, drug discovery projects in specific areas. And the proposals that were crafted for all of these kind of were the same. You just tweaked them a little bit depending on who the quote unquote customer would be. And so we recrafted the proposal, wrote it, submitted it to this patient advocacy group, and they agreed to fund a screen at UNC-Chapel Hill. So we got 3 screens here, which is fantastic. 2 of which are enzymatic, 1 of which is affinity selection. So this is fantastic. And in parallel with that, John and I worked closely together with others on the AdvanTx team to create this really detailed funding proposal, which we are submitting to a venture capital firm. So the hope is from these 3 screening initiatives, as I said, is we'll get some chemical tools, which can be used for publication, understanding the biology, submission of grant applications. But really, you know, at least from my perspective, from a therapeutics discovery perspective, it could be an opportunity to identify some chemistry starting points, and hopefully, you know, intellectual property. And then if this industry funding proposal is, if it's funded, then there's an opportunity to, we've designed in some target validation experiments and de-risking experiments, which hopefully will be funded through this mechanism. And if not, we're quite confident that there are other resources available at UNC or outside of UNC to help us actually begin to initiate these target validation and de-risking experiments. So as part of this industry funding proposal, excuse me, after during the course of creating that detailed funding proposal, we've crafted a research plan and budget from point of initiation, which is really here. But if you get to this point, you get chemical starting points, and you've validated the target and you've done some de-risking experiments, then you know, we outlined a plan to actually prosecute the project during all of the phases of early drug discovery, including lead identification, lead optimization, development candidate selection, and GLP studies and IND. And these are just general timelines and costs for a typical small molecule project. This is just all the generic activities you need to think about for a small molecule project. And this particular project is a small molecule project, but this specific plan on the right-hand side here is not the actual plan that we put into the industry funding proposal, mainly I didn't include that for confidentiality reasons, but it's just an example. And should point out too that AdvanTx is not only interested in small molecule projects, but we're also interested in antibodies, protein therapeutics, replacement therapies, gene therapies. If they're cell therapies, we can work with the team to try to figure out how to generate a comparable work plan and budget from the point the project is at all the way to an IND. So This is one of the last, I think it's the penultimate slide here. It's interesting because many of us have, we've talked to faculty on campus, and one of the key pieces of feedback that we've received consistently is from faculty is it's hard to understand where to go on campus and what resources exist on campus. And how do I go about accessing these? Which one's a good fit for my project versus a different project? So what we've done is created this one slide here to kind of just outline that for researchers. And at the top here, there's primarily funding opportunities that in the blue and the Carolina blue are obviously university funding opportunities. And down at the bottom, there are resource opportunities or capabilities that exist at UNC. And then obviously there are things on the outside. Look at the NC Biotech Center has translational research grants. There are federal programs. I mentioned the NIH Translational Research Center that on the last slide. So that those are opportunities, and we actively look for those external programs to funnel to faculty on campus. There's NC Tracks, translational work, idea grants in the Office of Vice Chancellor Research, Lineberger Cancer Center, School of Medicine, Gillings Innovation Lab, EII and School of Pharmacy, Eshleman Institute for Innovation, OTC Technology Development Grants, which I think Maria alluded to, and Michael was heavily involved with that. In the commercialization space, Maria, Kickstart and Judy, Kickstart Awards, CRV Fund, Carolina Angel Network. There are a lot of opportunities for to access funding, both within UNC, but also outside. We've obviously got the Pinnacle Hill relationship with Deerfield. It's a public-private partnership, and they're always, as you know, external investors, which I'd say Maria and Michael and others in OTC are pretty well connected with that community as well. Down at the bottom, I've been shocked at the number of core facilities that actually exist on campus that could be used for therapeutics discovery. Everything from bioinformatics analysis, protein expression purification, can generate CRISPR, genetically modified iPSCs and stem cell core. We can make CRISPR modified mutations that could be linked to a gene. And obviously NC Tracks provides an opportunity to access some resources as well. And this initiative, which I alluded to earlier, the Drug Discovery Initiative, which you'll hear about later, they're setting up a CRISPR screening center, I think in July-ish timeframe. They're now actively soliciting proposals for CRISPR screening projects. And I mentioned UNC's collaboration with HitChin or partnership with HitChin, and that's an outcome of this drug discovery initiative. And then we got Kickstart Venture Services, and down at the bottom, this team are really committed to trying to work with the faculty or representatives thereof to try to figure out how to connect with experts, both across UNC and outside of UNC. And from an administrative perspective, I think we're here to help. Really to try to navigate this system, talk to the relevant people in these groups, advocate for funding for high priority projects. So hopefully this will help simplify it for some of the faculty. And if you ever have questions, you want to talk it through, I think it's easy. Just reach out to one of us on the AdvanTx team, and we can figure out how to help you, or point you in the right direction, or can the team itself try to help you. Okay. Next steps, as I alluded to, we launched this in the end of January. This is a link to the webpage on the Office of Vice Chancellor for Research. If you just search Advance Therapeutics UNC, you'll see it. It'll pop up and there'll be a link there. As I said earlier, researchers who submit projects will receive general feedback within 1 to 2 months after submission. And we're actively following up on the high priority rated projects now, actually. And there's no deadline for this. This is meant to be ongoing. So this is just our first attempt to kind of get the message out there that this exists, if people want to tap into it. And if you've got therapeutic projects that you're just ideas, you want to talk about them, then we're here to listen and see how we can help. So I think that's it. I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, John. And I wanted to open up again for everybody here. Again, you have the chat room, or Haley can unmute you as well if you have a question you want to post directly as well. Just raise your hand here, or again post a question.
Somebody hit. I see Chad here. Was that you? Oh, sorry. That's you and Haley. Okay.
And then maybe while we're waiting for some of the questions to pop up, maybe John, can you talk a little bit more about any relationship, obviously your role with Deerfield, what this means with that, can you maybe expand a little more on that? Yeah.
Absolutely. It's interesting because Deerfield has, probably with a lot of investment firms, they have a strategy. Deerfield have a very defined strategy. It's gotten more defined over the last 2 years or so. And there's a particular type of project that they're looking for. And there could be projects or submissions that come in through Advance Therapeutics that could be a good fit for Pinnacle Hill, but there will be many that won't be a good fit for Pinnacle Hill. And I think all of us will appreciate there's a lot of really interesting research going on, and it's about trying to find the right match, right? And sometimes it's Pinnacle Hill and sometimes it's not. So then that's okay. I think that works out just fine. I think that there are avenues where there could be a good fit for Pinnacle Hill. PI wants to go that route. The university wants to go that route. Then, yeah, absolutely. That's what the path we'll explore. In cases where, for example, if they look at it or not, they say, no, we're not interested because A, B, or C, then this team are eager to, work with the PIs to try to figure out what are the other options, whether it's pharma, whether it's other investment groups, whether it's funding through EII, CRV, whatever the case may be. So does that help, Maria?
Yeah, thank you. And then maybe can you also expand, are there any commitments for the faculty that are going to be working on with this, if they submit something and they get support from this initiative? What are they committing to for getting the support? Yeah.
No, it's a great question. And I didn't go into this because I didn't, but I'll mention it now. There are a few projects that came out with the first tranche that are interesting, really interesting. They got a lot of the characteristics of an interesting therapeutic project. And I'd say one of those, there was a need to have some more computational analysis done. So we tapped into UNC Bark, Bioinformatics Core in the School of Medicine, and to work with the PI. So really in that situation, once we understood the problem and, the team did their analysis, we managed to secure some computational resource to dig into the biology, the pathway, and the outcomes in patients a little bit deeper. And the PI, all we asked was 2-paragraph summary of what we're trying to achieve. The computational biologist is the only person that can write the section about here's what we're going to do, because none of us are computational biologists. And they did, so it was about a page and a half. And then we transferred money, and it's work starting. So, to go off, try to work towards answering the question, give periodic updates back to the AdvanTx team. That's the plan for that one. There's another one where it's an interesting project that could open up a new space from in the undruggable genome area, and so that's interesting. And their specific target that was proposed, which there's a lot of data that says, yeah, this is interesting, based on human genetic data. And we're in the process of kind of trying to work with the UNC team to try to figure out, okay, what's the scope of work, what do we need to do, and how to stage that. So those discussions are ongoing. I mentioned the one with John Sondak. That one has not died. That one's continuing. Those discussions are continuing. So, and then there's one where we're still trying to figure out what the best outlet is for that particular project. Although, with that said, that particular enzyme target, I think it really helped, the discussions we had really helped the team kind of figure out, okay, here's a gap. I need to fill this gap. So the PI's got collaboration set up with someone at a local university to try to fill that gap with the information. So there's 4 good examples of, there's value add. Because that's the first question I got when we sent these slides to PIs. what's in it for me, right? Which is a legitimate question, right? So I think the intent is to try to help. And when we can't help, we'll tell you we can't help. And we'll try to get feedback though. Does that help, Maria?
No, yeah, that is great.
Michael?
I think the theme that we want everybody to take home from this and other discussions is that a lot of this is about resources and connectivity. So a lot of people have great science going on. They have a target in mind. Maybe they've interrogated that target. They have some pretty interesting biology and models. They just don't quite know how to go about advancing it and how to get funding for it. And there's a lot of funding at UNC people don't realize that they could apply for. And that's a big part of this. And they're all different. So it's like applying for grants, right? They're all different. They have their requirements, what makes them successful. And so we're helping people navigate that and thinking, you know, NC-TRACS is going to be a little different than Eshelman Institute for Innovation, which is going to be a little different than maybe what Pinnacle Hill is looking for, or the School of Medicine or our office, and external funding. And so we're connecting people with resources and expertise, and also providing it ourselves so that people are successful when they apply for funding. And they're bearing fruit on multiple projects right now that they have access. And John's a tremendous asset with his drug development experience, years of doing this, to provide the perspective that people need for how to advance a project and how to answer some of the key de-risking questions. And that's a big part of what we do too. We meet with folks and we say, here's something you should probably think about if you haven't already. What about this? What about this? And we can steer them to resources or sources of funding that can answer some of their questions. So a lot of this is about connectivity. The other question we get all the time is, do you have money? And AdvanTx, and at this point, we don't have our own, we'd like to, but at this point, we don't have our own source of funding, but already we've steered people towards different sources of funding for projects that have come in. And so that's, we can steer people to it. We don't have our own yet, but maybe we'll get there.
We're working on that. We're working hard on that. Yeah, that's all I'll say about that. That's one thing. The other thing too is, Michael, I mean, we should comment on the buy-in we have from senior leadership at UNC, from the Blossoms, from the Terrys, from the John Bamforths, the Angelos, the Shelleys, you know, all of those people are on board with what we're trying to achieve, and they're committed to working with this team to try to figure out how can they help advance therapeutic projects.
And what validates that is just some of the support that's come in from those different groups across campus. I mean, you can see the AdvanTx team, we have representation from across campus. The kinds of applications that are coming in across campus. I mean, arts and sciences, school of medicine, pharmacy, et cetera, et cetera. But the leadership for some of these projects, you know, there's such good representation. The leadership, you know, gets to review these things and they say, oh, that's pretty interesting. You know, we'd consider throwing in a little bit for this or for this project or this project. So there's, as John said, there's a lot of buy-in in many different ways. And as John mentioned, and you'll hear about in the future, there's some really interesting initiatives at UNC around de-risking and early discovery work that are powerful, and those are committed from the leaderships of, you know, from the Cancer Center, from School of Medicine, from pharmacy, from Terry Magnuson's office. So it's really good to see.
And we have a couple of questions from the audience. The first one is, what may hold back investigators from submitting a target? Submitting a target at an early stage is that there may not be much data to validate it. Could you resubmit the same target at a later date if the original was not considered?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's interesting. You know, validation to, in my experience, and please don't take this the wrong way, but validation to academics, and sometimes, you know, my impression is not always the same to what people in the therapeutic space think. So even if you have a target and you think it may not be validated, I would really encourage you to reach out. One. Two, if you think it's not and you'd rather not submit it, and later you decide to, absolutely. I mean, you know, we would value that. We would really appreciate the opportunity to engage around any target-based new discovery.
Yeah, because as we just talked about, there's now resources in place, and there will soon be more resources in place at UNC to help validate targets. So somebody comes forward with a target, we have the capacity based on our knowledge and expertise to provide some feedback. We have a group in our office, OTC, that does market landscape research. They can help look. John and I have access to different databases. We can do competitive intelligence work. But then just on the scientific level, we have the ability to look, for what kinds of assays and systems you could use to validate a target and what kind of things people are seeing as validation these days. It's changing. More and more industry and investors are looking for example, human genetic validation or translational models that are validated, and it gets complicated. So we can provide some insights into that for folks with early targets to give them some direction.
Yeah, and I would say too, and several people are, we're trying to figure out right now the process to streamline UNC's approach from, say, out of the CRISPR Screening Center, a new target's identified. How do we generate that translational data at UNC? Because that's what's going to be important for driving downstream investor interest. And it's a huge gap. It's a huge gap for Deerfield. It's a huge gap for a lot of VC firms. They're scared to invest that early, and so I think it's something that we're really working hard to try to figure out how to get at that data as quickly as possible. So if you have an early target, so at least you're past the CRISPR screen, you got the target, right? So then the question is, what do you do with it? So we can help with flushing that out. Doesn't mean the PI listens to what we say. I will say that, but I think if you got 6 people telling you, hey, you ought to really think about this from this angle, in addition to this angle, or instead of that angle. But that's up to them, right? That's their decision.
Great. Another question from the audience is: it appears that you don't have to be a faculty to get the support. Can you confirm that postdocs can submit a proposal as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we would do is we would want to have the postdoc advisor on board with, yeah, it's okay with for that postdoc to be involved in this type of interaction. And it's interesting. That's a really interesting question, because what you find, what I found anyway, is that some faculty, well, they're more interested in the basic science, but a lot of the young postdocs are very entrepreneurial, and they want to learn more about the therapeutic space. They want to learn about biotech. So they have a lot of energy. And as long as they have the okay from their boss, then yeah, we're happy to engage with those individuals as well. And there are at least 2 cases in my head right now where that has happened.
Yep.
And then you mentioned earlier that you're not just looking for things like small molecules, you're looking for biologics and others. So how broadly do you find a therapeutic space? What about devices that have some therapy release on them or others? Would those also qualify for this type of support? I'm
going to defer to Michael on that one.
Yeah, I think maybe eventually, I think at this point we're looking for traditional therapeutic modalities. We've had some questions around drug delivery, and that's still sort of a challenging space in its own right. Depends on what you're delivering. So we've had people want to deliver an existing drug, and that's probably not. We'll listen and we'll try to help make connections as much as we can. But I think we're more focused on sort of traditional therapeutic modalities. So probably not devices at this point.
But if someone submits that type of project to AdvanTx, 1, at least we know about it. 1, 2,
yeah, the
relevant people in OTC, right?
Yeah,
Brian,
right.
Bryant, others, so they know about it.
That's great.
Yeah, part of this, we get questions about a lot of different technology sectors, if you will, devices, and we had questions about diagnostics at one presentation. And this is an effort to canvass the university and really understand what people are working on. And we've always appreciated, but I think appreciated more now than ever, how much different research and research that we're not always aware of is going on at the university through different RFPs, not just Pinnacle Hill, but others. We see so many different things. And so we want to know about those things. That's what this is about. It's about hearing what people are working on and then trying to help. But we're open to hearing different things, and people can send it to me if they don't think it's a traditional therapeutic. Maybe it's something that OTC should know about. That's fine. We'll handle it accordingly. But we just want to make sure we're covering bases and we're helping people as much as we can. And maybe it's through this mechanism, it's through connections to something else, through funding for devices or whatever. But we want to hear about things. So we may not be able to help with some technology sectors as others, but we're interested in hearing about it, and we can triage it accordingly.
Yeah, I should say too that, in a couple of cases, we had faculty reach out to us, and they never submitted anything onto the portal, but led to a discussion, and so that stimulated the discussion about a potential therapeutic project, and so those are fine as well. We'll put it in the AdvanTx system ourselves, but at least AdvanTx, presenting that, it's a mechanism to get the dialogue going and make sure a lot of different people on campus that are on the team, AdvanTx team, are aware of here's what's happening on a particular project, so we can work together to figure out how do we help the PI, which I think that, from what I've seen, that's a gap. There has been a gap on campus.
And again, to submit the portal, I was just wondering maybe we could include in the chat room the link to, and we'll include it as well in the follow-up of the webinar. But for those who are interested and want to submit something, if maybe we could include it here in the chat room for those who want to look at the form, that'd be very useful as well.
Yeah, I'll do
Again,
that.
not to be scared if they're unsure, to just contact you, John, or Michael directly as well, right?
Should I pick all panelists and attendees? Oh yeah, somebody beat me to it. Hey,
Haley's very good, yeah.
Thank you, Haley. I like that.
Yeah, so one question that I had is, do you guys have examples of some early successes that you could share with the audience? I know it's a little early on, but I think it would be helpful for folks.
Yeah. Well, the ones I highlighted a little bit earlier, the one where we got computational support, that's one. And well, it just launched one, two. So what support have we been able to provide a PI? Computational support. I think John Sondak, with tremendous support. The collaboration with the NIH Translational Center. We've got the Dell screen through UNC-CH. Got funding from the patient advocacy group, those three. There's, I'm thinking of two. There's another one that I alluded to earlier, where for the undruggable target classes, that we're flushing out a scope of work right now, which comes with money. That we'll have to try to figure out. Okay, how do we want to stage it? Are we on the same page about what that scope of work is going to look like? I think that's happening right now. And the other one, I think, it's more indirect ad feedback that we provided around a particular enzyme target that, we identified a key gap and an avenue to try to help them get to that next stage to show that this particular target is they basically need a structure, crystal structure, to enable a particular downstream activity. So they're working together. They've got a path in place now to actually, and they've got a collaboration now that they're working on to try to enable that work. So I think, for me, it's not bad, considering, it's been the end of January. Would we like to see 100 more proposals? Yeah, we would love to. The more, the merrier.
Yeah, there's multiple other projects where people are now applying for funding on campus that they didn't know existed, right, before they submitted this proposal. So that's valuable. It's really valuable if they get it. But the fact that they have that education now. And then I'd say there's at least 2 projects that have come in where we're in a mode of, waiting for results. And we know what's going on with the project. We all know where things are. And we're waiting for key milestones on the project. And then when those data are available, together we'll make decisions about what should we do with this project. Should we approach industry is this something we should develop further at UNC with, even greater resources that are available? And so, there's a lot of engagement on a lot of these projects around campus between funding and expertise, and then, positioning things for external discussions. And when do we do that? How do we do that? Who do we do that with?
And I know from a Kickstart perspective, we're very excited about this initiative because I think this really, will help build an even bigger pipeline of therapeutic projects in the future that, have a stronger development and therefore will be, a lot more attractive for investors and a lot more, successful in applying for non-dilutive grants as well. So I think it's all exciting, and ultimately, just creating impact from the research at the university.
We sure hope so.
Yeah, that's the goal.
That's right.
With that, why don't we have any final comments from both of you that you want to share with the audience before we let you guys go? Yeah.
Well, just thanks again for giving us the opportunity to come. And, like I said earlier, if you leave with, a couple of take homes, is we're here to help. And if you want to engage, we're eager to engage around any therapeutic project.
Yeah, I'll ditto that. I mean, we just want to hear from folks what people are working on and help wherever we can. So we're here. If you can apply through the portal, you know who we are. You can reach out by email or phone or whatever. We'd love to talk.
Thank you so much. And Haley just put our Twitter account and our newsletters for those of you interested in learning more about Kickstart or other webinars in the future. Please don't forget to sign up for those. And thank you so much, both of you. Again, keep up the good work. We're really excited about this. And thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.